Today's interview is with Dwaine Clarke. Dwaine is a commercial broker who helps investors get into triple net leases. And he talks us through that investment strategy, some misconceptions, some things that we may well not have known already, and just a really interesting conversation about that space. He also talks about how he has an investment club and how he finds investors. So I'm sure a lot of that is interesting to a lot of you, so stick around for all of that. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multi-family real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Dwaine Clarke. Hey Dwaine, how you doing, man?
How you doing, my friend? I really appreciate it. I love your energy. I love that. Like, I'm really looking forward to this. It's my week.
Thanks, man. Well, it's end the week strong, right? It's Friday when we're recording this, so I appreciate you being here, man. And we were talking before, you were a little bit of a wrestling fan back in the day. We were talking about you, like Goldberg. I was a fan as well. He was pretty cool back in the day. So you're definitely a good candidate for the show, right? Definitely the wrestling part will definitely fit in, and you definitely have the real estate. So do you want to kind of give a little brief introduction into who you are and what you've been up to, so for people could give an idea about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a real estate investor. I'm also a commercial and residential real estate broker. So I kind of wear multiple hats. And more of my passion kind of leading into commercial, I work in a specific kind of niche, which is called single tenant net lease properties, which is not really like the most popular because people don't really know of it. And I know it because you see Walgreens, CVS, McDonald's, those types of stuff that we shop and eat at and get our coffee and do our banking at each and every day. And then people actually don't know that these are investments that other investors actually own. And I kind of stumbled upon this niche several years ago and just kind of fell in love with it ever since. It's kind of like a name, they call it a mailbox money, because for most of the way that the lease structures is that the tenant pays all of the bills and you kind of sit back and you just collect these checks from these big name, brand name tenants. Other than that, I'm also a syndicator. I'm invested in several projects in industrial and medical and the multifamily space. And I just kind of love like the kind of freedom that allowed me to. And this wasn't really my first starting in real estate. I started out in fix and flip and small rentals and property management. Eventually, kind of got my way up to doing this. So I kind of have my hands in many different things, but right now my main focus is on net lease and passive investing.
How did you first get into real estate? What brought you into the real estate world? Did you have anyone, mentors, anyone that brought you into it, or was it just kind of a bit of luck, or was it something else?
Well, it's like I always had a knack for like entrepreneurship. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, just kind of finding the avenue that I wanted. I probably was one of those guys who had like 50 business cards. I was trying to start some type of business. And eventually I always wanted to get in real estate, but you never know how to really get into it. So eventually I found a yard sign on the road that says, free real estate conference this weekend. Come out and check us out. And probably many of your listeners has been on it. And it's these kind of like these Tupperware parties where all of these gurus are doing these presentation pitches, and they're like, come sign up for my course. And there's so many different things, and I really didn't realize there was so much stuff you can do in real estate. I mean, most people look on TV and see the house flipping things and this and there's so much stuff you can do. So I got in and I found a group that I resonated with, and I purchased their course, and I also got their coaching package. And I remember the day I was sitting there and they gave me like this pile of stuff, and I like couldn't figure out. And so I learned on the creative side from like subject twos and wholesaling and creative marketing. So I got into that, putting up the yard signs and stapling stuff and sending out letters and things like that. So eventually that led into me getting to some small rentals and kind of doing it. And I flipped a lot of houses with a partner at the time, and then eventually got out of that. That was during the 2007 2006 era, and then as many people kind of know what happened after that. So I got in trouble there, ended up losing my portfolio, recalibrated. So I went out, got my real estate license. I'm just going to focus on kind of building my cash reserves as I worked, my regular 9 to 5. so I can eventually, kind of get back into the game, but just with a little bit more intelligence. And eventually I found an investor, which ended up being my mentor, who owned a whole bunch of apartments and self-storage, as well as like a Walgreens. And at the time I was like, what is, I didn't know you can own a Walgreens. I thought like Walgreens, owned all their properties. But he said, this is something that you can be the owner of. And then once I find out that his lifestyle that he was living, that was kind of what I wanted. I was still young at the time, didn't have no kids or a wife. So I was okay doing the grind and doing the work, but I kind of always aspired to getting to the next level, to having that lifestyle so I can, travel and maybe settle down and have kids and things like that. So one thing led to another where I said, I'm going to focus my brokerage to learn everything about this niche, make as much money there, and then eventually be able to, buy and invest into projects like that. So eventually, I think after several years, I figured it out. At close to 10 years doing this particular niche, and I've now done transactions in over 40 states and many of the different asset classes. I mean, the different sub niches like 7-Eleven gas stations, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Starbucks, a lot of the name brand tenants that we associate with and shop at each and every day. And then I'm also an investor in some of these projects and also other asset classes, where now I'm able to kind of, work from home. My kids are homeschooled. My wife stays at home. We kind of live that lifestyle. I want to kind of continue to build on it. And then later on, I created the Passive Investors Club, which is just kind of like my small private equity syndication group, which I just, bring in investors who are like-minded, that wants to also achieve a certain type of lifestyle, and also try to help them get what they want as well. So it's been just great, and I'm always learning and love being on shows like this to network with other investors and try to take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's what I love about this show, is like just talking to people like yourself, right? And just doing it, and have the different niches going on as well. But I think I found it really interesting what you say there as well, is like that you were able to create the life you want for yourself, right? You kind of figured out what you wanted your life to look like, right? Like you said, your wife's at home, your kids are homeschooled, right? And you kind of have a lot of that freedom, right? It doesn't mean that you don't work, but it's kind of a lot of that choice that you put on yourself, right? And you've created that life where you want yourself. And I think that's so cool about real estate. I think it's absolutely amazing, actually, that you're able to create whatever you envision for yourself. You're able to create that through real estate.
And that's the beauty of it. It's like, with real estate or, in ventures and any endeavor, you can, just do what you want to do. I mean, I always, grew up learning from my parents, which, they came as immigrants from Jamaica, and they just came, we got to get a job, and you just work and you invest in the stock market. And they didn't know any better. They didn't know any alternatives. So when I was doing it, they was kind of like poo-pooing on the idea of me doing this and it being risky and not taking risk and stuff. And, just through my confidence, through education, through books and audio books, and of course, ultimately my mentor, I was just able to kind of take the risk. And even though I received some pain along the way and I learned a lot of stuff, but I just knew that this is the only path in order to get really true freedom. And I kind of love your background image there with like kind of the whole world there.
Yeah.
I met my wife. She's from Slovenia, like a small country in Europe. And ever since I met her, we go out there, besides from, of course, last year, pandemic or current year, is that, I'm able to travel to these different countries. And then it kind of opens up your mind more. You're like, man, I want more of this. So it kind of motivates you even more, that I want to like go out and just like do stuff and just like live free and do whatever I want to do, So there's so much stuff. And of course, real estate is like the quickest. And I just love this path to utilizing it to get, to achieve many, many goals that you can get.
Yeah. Traveling is so cool to me. You learn so much by just traveling. Like, even if you don't want to learn, you see different cultures, different ways of life. It opens your mind so much, man. It's crazy. It's just, I think it's one of the best educators. And I have a 17-month-old son. That's definitely, if we have more kids as well, definitely something I want to expose them to, because I think you learn more from doing that and absorbing that and seeing it than sitting in a classroom any day of the week.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what the key, just the exposure, and then like you get interested in it and you want to learn from it, and then like you want more of it and stuff. So I mean, I learned so much by just traveling, learning about the history and the culture, eating the foods and stuff like that. And it's just It's really cool. You don't know until you actually go there and like really see it yourself.
Do you speak any of the language at all? Have you learned? Has she taught
Oh
you
yeah,
any?
I mean, I know like, Pivo, which is beer, and little small stuff like that. That my father-in-law taught me. That he's there. They love to drink and have fun and things like that. So it certainly taught me that word. But I mean,
Probably all the swear words as well. That's usually
yeah,
what.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's always you always pick up new things, but it's cool. 'Cause I've been to like Croatia and Latvia and Italy and all these different Serbia. Like it's just so much beautiful places out there to travel to, and they just got to find whatever path you choose to be able to accelerate that, so you can also achieve that as well.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Obviously you've talked about triple net leases is kind of one of the things that your brokerage specializes and your mentor taught you about. But like you said, I don't think many people are aware that, you assume that Walgreens owns the Walgreens, right? You assume they own the real estate. You assume that Starbucks owns the real estate. You assume that McDonald's, Burger King, and sometimes they do, I think, but a lot of times it's like you said, an investor owns it and they lease these things out. What do you think there's any reason why it's not as well known? Do you think it's just because it's maybe not as sexy as multifamily or flipping or whatever it is? It doesn't make for a good maybe HGTV show, right?
Exactly. Yeah, to have a TV show like, hey, I own a Walgreens that I don't have to do any work for, and I just sit back on my lazy behind and drink beers all day. So yeah, it's not as sexy, with the house flipping shows, people going there with the sledgehammers, and I mean, it looks fun, like things that you're really there and you can actually touch. But with these investments, is really a hands-off type of investment. You'll be able to allocate those assets, and then you just a lot of the ones that we sell, my clients that literally they buy them sight on scene. Like they live in California, they find an asset in Florida or Texas, and they may go out there for like the due diligence thing, but there's really no reason with the tenant paying all the bills and completely responsible for everything. And now with the internet, I've done all of my transactions via Zoom and the phone call and through email, and it's really like a seamless thing. It's like kind of just buying like a corporate bond or something. It's really a hands-off thing. So that's why I think maybe that's why it hasn't really picked up steam. But lately, during the pandemic, activity has surged for me. I've been getting tremendous amount of phone calls for these types of assets, because as they've been seeing other asset classes kind of been exposed through pandemics, or as well as through other market conditions, they're seeing like, okay, I actually like the idea of a 25-year Walgreens paying rent every single month and not having to go out of business. I know that Costco or McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, they've been open during the pandemic. They've been they're essential businesses, so they've been generating income. They have drive-throughs, or they have essential groceries or different needs that people have to use each and every day. And these asset classes been accelerating to the point where it's like such high demand that it's been hard to find product for people to buy. So that's also a good alternative. Another thing people don't really like about it is this: like you have a long-term lease, it's set in place, so you really can't force appreciation in it. So it's like you just the lease it is what it is, and some of them, a lot of them have rental bumps in the lease period, but for the most part, you can't like renovate the property and then ask for a higher rent, each year. So that's kind of maybe is more geared to people that just want a nice property that preserves your capital, and it's just a nice long-term investment, then you don't really have to worry about it. So maybe it's a good mix to have with other assets that you can probably increase your income over time. So that's things I like about it, and a lot of the investors kind of see that. But especially now where people are, I think, more focused on capital preservation, not losing money, and just long-term survival, or having a property to pass on to their family or their heirs in the future, maybe this will be a good option for you as well.
Yeah, it seems like it's a very solid cash flow play, right? It's not that you, like you said, it's not really an appreciation play where you're going to be able to go in and, like a multifamily property, increase rents $100 a door, and then you increase the value of the property $1 million or something like that, right? It's just more of a, you buy it, the tenant takes care of everything, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. What are the owner's responsibilities? Are there any, or is it all on the tenant?
Yeah, the ones that we dealt with,
Mhm.
which they call the lease contract is called an absolute triple net lease.
Mm.
So each end, or each end of that triple net is a part of the the responsibility. So it could be the taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, everything that's involved. And a lot of these tenants, they own it, they operate it, and they take care of everything. And then the only thing that you do is just, cash your check and utilize it as you wish. So that's the other thing. I mean, they have other different lease structures for different tenants. They may have like a double net lease where the landlord is responsible for the roof or the structure or the parking lot. But most of them are the most popular ones, of course, are the one where the tenant pays for everything, and of course that's for obvious reasons. So yeah, for the most part, they pay for everything, and again, it's very very hands off, and yeah, it's a great property. We recently did a Dollar General property, which they're one of the top retailers. They sell all of the essential goods from groceries, milk, and paper towels and disinfectant wipes and baby diapers and all that stuff that people typically buy. They'll typically give you a 15-year lease, guaranteed. And the nice thing about them, they're investment grade. So the guarantor, who's Dollar General Corporation, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, publicly traded, has a large financial backing. So people know when they invest into one of these, they know that their check is going to be coming in no matter what each month. And compared to maybe a rental property where with the economy changing, you may get a little nervous and say maybe they won't pay next month, or you have like the government saying that they won't be able to. They can defer their rent payment, things like that. You just know this is more solid and secure investment, and that money's going to be coming in no matter what, which is always the most important.
Yeah. So are you dealing with investors that are mainly buying ones that have a lease in place and have renters there already, have tenants there already?
Oh yeah, exactly. So we do a lot of new construction. So by the
Mhm.
time they close on the property, there's cash coming in from the property, so they can start to collect the rent. And it's just like I says, it's a very, and in other ways that the lease is already in place. It's already a couple of years or a year in place, and it's already cash flowing. So once you buy in, you're already ready to go. You know what to expect. If you have a loan on it, your lender knows what to expect. They know that it's a good, solid property with a good tenant. They know that cash flow coming in. There's no coming in and we got to do any capital improvements and all the different stuff to get it up to market. It's already ready to go. So as soon as you close on the property, you're going to be cash flowing. So that's another really big benefit that people like about it.
Yeah. What do you think that? What are the main misconceptions people have about this type of investment, about triple net leases?
Well,
Is
there's
it?
so many different categories that you can choose from. So,
Mm,
like Dollar General is one. Then you have like a sit-down casual restaurant like Arby's or something like that. Which some tenants are more suited for, um, you know, market risk than others. So, like the casual dining segment got really hit hard because they had to close their actual, dining area. So that completely impacted. I did a transaction 2 years ago, which was like an Italian, like a regional Italian eatery. And majority of their places are like, how like an Olive Garden, you come in, it's like a family dining experience. You come in with, five, six of your family members, and you have a nice Italian dinner. But now with the pandemic, they had to shut it all down, or they had to close out, 50% or minimize the amount of occupants they can have into their building. So that really impacts sales, which then potentially can impact the tenant paying the rent. So you have to kind of look for tenants that are, one are resistant to, the pandemical stuff, where they're open, they're essential business. I also like to recommend to investors to buy e-commerce resistant tenants. So ones that are not where Amazon or any of these e-commerce stores can, make your business obsolete. So we saw that with, some of the furniture stores, or some of these, clothing stores that, that were very popular or maybe publicly traded. But then once Amazon or some of these e-commerce players came in, they shut them down, and now their business is kind of relevant. So I like fast food. I like, certain types of entertainment. I like, gas stations and convenience stores, and certain type of grocery stores. So those tenants are going to be more in need, and then going to have that kind of that residual residual need all the time. So you're going to be feeling a lot more safer, moving forward.
Yeah. So then does the cap rates vary on whoever's in the building? Could you essentially have two properties right next to each other with different tenants, and very different cap rates?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and it really depends on, there's a whole bunch of different factors. So for example, you have like the strength of the tenant. So if you have kind of like a more of like a mom and pop guarantee, maybe they'll pay a higher cap rate, which seems more attractive on paper, but then it'll be, less secure as a tenant, because if something happens to their business or impact the way they be able to do business, it can really hurt their ability to pay rent. Or you have like a Dollar General or a CVS, which are investment grade, which is like the highest level. They're publicly traded. They're multi, multi-branded. They have multiple stores, so they can guarantee the rent and make sure it's paid. Then you also have the amount of lease term that's left. So like if you buy new construction with a 15-year lease, it'll have a certain cap rate, and then you have some that just may have 3 or 4 years left on the lease, and someone that's trying to sell it, maybe that'll be a higher cap rate, but less value of an asset. And then, of course, you have location. Some could be out in the middle of nowhere. And then you have some that are located in like a hard corner location with a lot of traffic in a densely populated area with nice household income and schools and businesses nearby and employees. So it really, it's all, kind of a multifaceted type of thing. And that's what I help investors with. I make sure to identify all the top markets, identify the top brands that are doing well, that are e-commerce resistant, that are, that done well during the pandemic, that are essential businesses, and then also meet your needs, because a Dollar General has, on average a 5.5 cap rate to up to 7, compared to a Chick-fil-A, which is like 3.75 to 4%. Yeah. So it's a big difference. So it's maybe you need a little bit more income, you can go with a Dollar General, but then some people really love a Chick-fil-A brand, which is one of the top tenants around. You can go with those, but then you just kind of have to pay a little bit more for that, for the convenience of owning that tenant. So it kind of varies, but you got to look at kind of your goal, as well as kind of the tenant and the lease term that fits what your goal is.
Right. Yeah. And then for anyone who because this is really interesting, and I think like you said, it can really make a lot of sense, either as part of a portfolio, or even of all of your portfolio, if you're just looking for a solid cash flow, and like you said, maybe some legacy wealth and something to pass on to your kids. For investors who are getting started on looking into this, do you have any advice for them when they're looking at properties, how to analyze a deal, or how to sort of, find something that fits what they're looking for?
Yeah, so it really just comes down to kind of like you had mentioned, kind of like this, like a mix of portfolio. So maybe you'll go with a couple of apartment syndications, some self-storage, and say, I want some capital preservation. I want some longer term, security. Let me go with a triple net lease property to kind of add in, to kind of blend it. Because again, with the cap rates being a lot lower than like traditionally what you get out of an apartment or a self-storage deal, you have to kind of, find out what your cash flow needs is. So I say you start there, and then you kind of go work backwards to find out which tenant kind of will command that type of rent that you need, and then also kind of the cap rates. And then of course, because since they're not like the most cheapest investment option, you kind of want to kind of figure out where a mix of your portfolio would it work out. So, you always kind of start from there. And then some of the things that you look out for, again, is the, seeing that it fits all of the boxes, that it won't be resistant or affected by any e-commerce or any type of government shutdowns or regulations, that when you own it, that it's going to be able to survive and then also thrive. And then something like a lot of investors I work with, they're a lot older. They don't want to be a landlord, and maybe they have kids who they want to pass on the benefits of owning real estate, and they don't want to deal with it. Maybe they're not interested in real estate, or they're in school, and they can be able to just sign over that asset over to them, and they could just continuously get the benefits and own it while not having to do any of the work. So it's so many things you can do with it. So it's really based off of your lifestyle and where your portfolio allocation is.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. It's really such an interesting. That's not that well known, I think, and not talked about for sure very often. But you also started your own sort of investment club. You talked about that earlier. What made you want to sort of So essentially, you bring on investors with you, right? You bring on passive investors, and you find multifamily deal, self-storage, or whatever you guys are investing in. What made you want to do that yourself?
Yes, for me, it was just like I kind of the same reason that a lot of people want to invest is just kind of like I like me personally being kind of burnt in the beginning, maybe from my lack of knowledge, but I just kind of like wanted to find a way to kind of blanket my risk. So I like this the diversification aspect. So I'm always a big proponent of that. So I always like because especially doing this podcast, I learned so much and network with so many people and learning about all of the benefits of the other individual asset classes like apartments, self storage, or mobile home parks. That if I end up spreading my risk out and investing and not having all of my eggs in one basket, that end up being better off in the long run. So with the mix, I created the Passive Investors Club to kind of take advantage of looking at other deals with other sponsors. So we're just strictly on the passive side and not as a sponsor. And we just work with other partners. We're a big proponent of partnering with people who are smarter than us and who have better resources and really know that asset class very well. And then also taking my experience from the single tenant net lease side and then helping us get into those types of projects directly there. But they're, like I said, big proponent of just like diversification, minimizing our risk, and then taking advantage of all like the tax advantages and all the other benefits of real estate. So that's a big thing. So we have like a nice group, and what we do is just educate each other and just bring on as much comfort level. So then once we're ready to pull trigger on any deals, everyone feels comfortable. We feel good about what we're doing, and then we just kind of pass on the knowledge so everyone rise up. So that's the biggest thing about it.
Yeah, how are you finding these investors? Are they just coming through your work, or are you your podcast finding them through that, or do you have any other ways that you guys are finding these investors?
Mostly just through our network and through our podcast. I've been very blessed to do over 180 episodes with different investors, all different backgrounds. So I've been able to kind of like learn what they're doing, and it's kind of great, kind of like how we're talking now. It's like I get this talk to you one-on-one for a whole hour. So it's like selfish. I get to talk to you and learn about, and then like especially like off camera, you get to talk for a couple minutes and get to know each other, and you kind of start to build a relationship. Because in a traditional world, I probably wouldn't be able to fly out to Vegas to meet you. Like went to a conference and we just happened to kind of bounce next to each other and then have a conversation. But through the beauty of technology, with Zoom and all these different online platforms, we're able to kind of meet somebody like kind of a speed dating type of platform. And then also I meet a lot of local sponsors here through my local meetups. And I was kind of before the pandemic kind of like limit a lot of stuff. So I used to kind of go around to Boston, Massachusetts, and other places in far parts of Connecticut and New Jersey to meet investors and find out what they're doing, and then just kind of put together a list of potential sponsors to work with. Of course, go through the process of finding which one will be the best fit for us, and we just kind of take it slowly, and then you kind of do that slow walk of relationship building, and then take it to the next level of finally investing in one of their deals.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, this is really interesting. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show, man. This is just, this is what it's so cool about having, like you said, having your own podcast, right? You get someone on that's doing something different and you get to ask all these cool questions and find out more about it. It's just, real estate is so cool to me. So anytime I can learn about something different, I love that. So I appreciate you educating me and hopefully educating a lot of people on there. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I like to incorporate some wrestling related real estate questions. And the first question is, what would your wrestling name be?
I would say, I was thinking about it when you asked me. I was like, what could be a cool name? I would say like the Daddy Nader or something like that. So I've been very trying to be more intentful of being the best father I can be. My kids are home, and like I always told myself when I have kids, I'm gonna have the kind of the open door policy where they'll come in and visit me anytime. So I just want to like always emphasize that, especially through our club and investors. They're all family guys and stuff like that. So it's always cool learning about that. So like if I always had a stage name, I would say I'll be the Daddy Nader or something like that. Name, but I think it fits my kind of my profile and my aspirations in life.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
3 and 6. So I got my 6-year-old is my son Jordan, and then 3-year-old Christina is my daughter. And yeah, they're very good kids and all that stuff. And you're always learning new things and how to be a better parent and stuff like that. But I'm glad the way things worked out, that I'm able to be home with them and see them every day and, watch them grow up and stuff like that. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
man, that's so huge, right? That's so cool as well. That's
You have what, a 17, like just one?
17-month-old son. Yeah, one for
Yeah,
now. Yeah, man.
one of those days.
He's awesome, but he wears me out some days. My God, he's just nonstop, but in the best possible way. In the best possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's been the biggest? Oh, sorry. If you every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
I would say probably the network slam or something like that. I'm a big proponent on network, and I've benefited from it by just reaching out, especially to people who know more than me. People in other different industries. I just learned a lot. So I just say, like, I will call this is another power networking event. And then when I go do my local meetups, which are all virtual, we get 5 to 15 investors on, and we're always constantly networking. And I love letting people know that other people they should meet and things like that. So I think that's been my biggest skill and of course trying to develop other skills is just the ability to connect other people, and then also it's like a win-win situation, and they'll benefit and they'll be able to help you out as well. So I think that's always an important skill to obtain.
100%, man. 100%. That's a huge skill to have. That's definitely a finishing move right there. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career?
Yeah, early on, it was just being smacked up by, just the early learning of my real estate investing career, going in during a turbulent market cycle, which not many people kind of predicted, or at least at that time for me, being kind of like a new real estate investor. And what it did, it actually just kind of made me learn more. At that time, I said, I'm always going to review contracts. I'm going to be more of a better deal analyzer. I'm going to network more so I can learn from others and learn from others' mistakes. So that was like my biggest slam was, early on in my career. And of course, me trying to start multiple businesses in different industries like internet and all this different stuff that didn't work out. And it ended up finding me into this pathway, which, God meant for me was real estate and, real estate investing on the commercial side.
Yeah, very cool. Was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
I would say after when I got initially beat up in my first rental property portfolio, I had those little period of time afterwards because you will lose a little confidence, like losing your properties to foreclosure, and you say, is this the right thing? Should I be doing this? And then sometimes that also led me to kind of trying to start other businesses because I was like afraid that maybe I wasn't cut out for this. So after a while, it just when I end up just listening to Robert Kiyosaki, all these different books and gurus, when they kind of get your confidence back, and I'm like, I could do this. And then especially when you network with other people, you see them doing well, and I'm like, they're all doing the exact same thing that you're doing, and it's not like real estate is not new. It's just they're just doing it and they're making it work. So I think anybody can make anything work. It's just you got to figure out how to do it properly or effective. And once you get knocked off, you got to get back on there because, especially here in America, like you can start from nothing, you can lose everything, and you can get it all back very quickly. So I'm a very proponent of that and just like not giving up because, and it's everything's for the taking. It's enough for everybody. This pure abundance. And then once you get that, you pass on that knowledge to someone else so they don't maybe trip on the same landmines as you. And, and everyone starts winning because then you feel better as you pass on that knowledge. So that was like probably the biggest moment for me is I was, scared initially, but eventually I was say, I got to do this, it's, nothing else but going up from here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. That's cool. That's a cool story. Hopefully that helps some people because that proximity, like you said, right? You can listen to podcasts, you can watch YouTube, you can read books, right? You don't necessarily have to be in the room with these people to be surrounded by them, right? They say your net worth is your network, right? Well, it doesn't mean that you have to be in the room with these people. You can listen to a podcast with someone, right? You could read a book, read an article that they wrote, and essentially you're surrounded by them. And then if you do go the next step, and like you said, go to these networking events, reach out to people, contact them, that all lifts you up, right? Because you see what they're doing, you see their success, you can follow what they're doing, right? You don't need to make your own path, right? You don't need to blaze a new trail, right? Just follow what they've done, right? It's very repeatable, a lot of this stuff. You don't need to go out and rewrite the book, right? You can just read someone else's pages and kind of follow that. And I think that's cool. And I think that can help a lot of people, I think, for sure.
I'm a big proponent, and I haven't coined the phrase, but I'm pretty sure someone said it before. Automobile university is a big thing for me. Is that, during my early years when I was just driving around, I always had an audio book of some type of caliber in the car, instead of just having the music playing, which you're not learning anything from. And even sometimes if you're not paying attention fully to it, it subconsciously will say, keep playing it and playing it. So any free time podcast or audio book, or pick up something so you can constantly educate yourself, but it is not from the technical side, but at least boost your confidence and say, I'm going to do something. And even if it don't go correctly the first way, eventually you'll figure it out, and it's just going to work out if you just persistent enough.
100%. Yeah, that's awesome advice, man. That's awesome. Well, man, this has been a fun interview. This has been awesome. It was really interesting to me. I know, obviously, you've created a life for yourself that I think a lot of people are envious of and would want to replicate. And I think that's really cool. So congratulations on that. And it's always good to hear someone that's gotten there, right, where the journey that a lot of us are on. But before we go, you want to promote everything you have? Tell us more about your podcast, where people can find it. How can people reach out and get in touch with you, or find out more of what you've got going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you are a podcast listener, you love learning about building wealth and real estate, just like you learn here on your show and all your excellent guests. I also have my own podcast called the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show, and we just interview all the top people, and we just kind of pick their brain and just find out the best path. And I find that very valuable, speaking with these people directly, so people also can learn from that by listening to that as well. I also, for people who are interested in net lease investing, I have a website called buynnnproperties.com. You just learn about it. You can just have a conversation. I can let you know what's going on in the market, and what tenants are doing well, which ones I recommend, if that's something they ever want to take a dive into. And also we have our like-minded investor club, with people who want to just build wealth, get involved in projects, or just learn, because we're constantly always doing educational workshops and just kind of bettering each other and building each other up. That's at the passiveinvestorsclub.com. And I love to kind of connect with anybody. You can find me on social media and just typing in Dwaine Clarke, and then you can find me anywhere on all of the major platforms. And again, it was a pleasure being on your show and just being in your presence. I really love the energy. That's what put my week up.
Thanks, man. Well, the pleasure was all mine. I really enjoyed that. So thanks for making the time, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, man. Have some fun with your kids this weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. You as well. And I will talk to you again soon. I appreciate it.
Thank you, bro.